Well, why don't we go forward? Next we had on the agenda discussion of the mileage reimbursement policy board of commissioners. Commissioner Shoemaker.
All right, I asked that be put on the agenda. I mean, when we took office, of course, you know, we espoused our 10 governing principles, and one of those, the last one, 10. Sometimes we get beat over the head with those, by the way. So, I mean, I'll cite number 10. Board of County Commissioners will lead by example and discontinue the practice of accepting per diem payments, cars, and other such perks. I think we left one loophole out there that probably should be addressed, and that's the issue of mileage reimbursement. And let me tell you what I'm contemplating. I believe that if we're going to an event that's in county, inside of the limits of Carroll County, that we, and I'm just talking about us as commissioners, not talking about the workforce of Carroll County government, but I don't believe that we ought to be expecting to be reimbursed for our mileage within the confines of Carroll County. I think that's part and parcel of our job, is to attend events in Carroll County. If we're going to events outside of Carroll County, and there certainly is a need, given the activism of Annapolis these days and that sort of thing, to go outside the county for events. Seems to me that if a pool vehicle, and county government has several, but if there's a pool vehicle that's reasonably available, then we ought to make it our policy that we will avail ourselves of a pool vehicle rather than take our own vehicles outside the county and then hit the taxpayers with a big bill for reimbursement. I mean, it seems to me. Now, you know, if one of us is in Sykesville, one of us is in Mount Airy, something like that, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to schlep up to Westminster to jump in a pool vehicle and drive off to Annapolis. That doesn't make sense to me. But if one is reasonably available, if we're driving by Westminster on our way to get to Annapolis or wherever this out-of-county meeting may be, it seems logical that we would save the taxpayers some money and jump in a pool vehicle and go off on our merry way. I mean, those are my thoughts. I mean, it seems to me that would be part of servant leadership that we talked about when we came up with these 10 governing principles.
Okay.
When I saw this on the agenda, I wasn't sure why it was on the agenda, but I've seen a lot of policy stuff on the agenda lately. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the meetings that Commissioner Howard has with the Chief of Staff, are we going over policies or something? Is that something we're...
Nope.
Okay. Well, anyway, I was thinking perhaps you were going to raise the mileage fee from 45 cents to 55 cents, since that's what federal government does.
Yeah.
But so I wasn't sure what the meat of this conversation was. But I would suggest that you haven't really looked at the numbers, because I think it costs the taxpayer less to use to get mileage for your own vehicle. And as a matter of fact, we're looking at that for our entire fleet to do that comparison. We haven't gotten that study back yet, but one of the thoughts was that between insurance and buying the car and the price of gas and wear and tear and maintenance on the car, that it probably it might save money not to have quite so many vehicles in our fleet, and to allow people to take their own car and give them some either mileage or stipend of some sort. So I think maybe the numbers aren't in the direction that you think they're in. And the other reason that I feel like this is directed to me, I mean, I'm one of the people that does take mileage. I've always, every professional job I've had, I've taken mileage, and for the state or wherever I worked. So that was, we did lead by giving up our per diem, maybe $3,000 a year or so. I'm the only one's been a commissioner before, so I used to get the per diem and the mileage, and I've never taken food money because you don't have to eat. You have to drive there, but you don't have to eat. Not sure exactly what you're asking, and maybe asking that we also give up our mileage. But I think we'll find that it's less expensive for us to use our own cars when we take our mileage. And it's also, the other thought that I have is, and I might be a little busier than you are because you don't have kids at home anymore, but almost everywhere I go, I have to stop and do something that's personal. And I do think it's wrong for me to use a county car to do anything personal, whether I have to, pick up a child or, pick up a purchase that someone needs for school the next day or whatever it is. And almost everywhere I go, I'm multitasking. So I don't think it's proper to use a county car to do my personal things. So one of the reasons that I generally use I all the time use my cars, because number one, I don't think we should use pool cars to do personal things. And number two, I think if you do the cost analysis, it's actually less money for the county if I take my own and get the 45 cents per mile. So I don't know who else has done any analysis on this or even cares, but that's what I would offer.
I think mileage obviously is all inclusive, so I guess the idea is, it couldn't be less if we're using vehicles we already had from a pool standpoint. Now, I agree, if we're talking about long term, should we bother replacing cars, or would we be better off getting out of cars? That's probably a function of the fleet. But I think, like for instance, if we're going down to Mako or something like that, what it's going to cost in wear and tear and fuel in the car is definitely going to be less than mileage. If you factor in your car.
I don't think that's accurate. But
Especially at 50
why don't we
cents a
wait
mile.
for the study, then we'll find out. But
You don't think it's accurate that you would use? Okay.
yeah,
All right.
I don't think the numbers are going to come out that way.
If you don't factor in wear and tear on the vehicle, you can't spend more on fuel than 45 cents a gallon. 45
But
cents
why
a
wouldn't
mile.
why wouldn't you factor in wear and tear on the vehicle? When the vehicle wears out, the county vehicle wears out, you have to buy another one.
Well, because
So I don't know why you wouldn't factor
we
that.
got a bunch of vehicles sitting over there across the street that aren't being used. I guess that's the point.
Now, ultimately, if we get rid of them, that's
Yeah, that's a
that would
different
be a really
story.
good idea. I
That's a
think.
different story. But as we sit here today, we have those vehicles.
But
that are
we
readily
probably
available.
shouldn't. That's been my argument for the last year and a half. We haven't quite gotten there yet, but maybe it would be nice to see what we come up with when the folks study that, and that might help shed a little more light on this conversation.
Of course, it'd be hard pressed to come up with less than zero in the county.
That's true, and
I mean, when
I
it comes to
think that
the,
each of us individually can make that decision. For example, like I said, I don't use any of the expenses we could use for food. I never do that because I don't think that's appropriate. Like I said, I can eat and not eat, and I can eat at McDonald's or a big restaurant, but that's my decision, and so I don't think that's... I've personally always felt that. If someone else did it, I wouldn't think any ill of them, because it is there, it is appropriate for, business folks do that. So I wouldn't have a problem with that if somebody else decided that. As a matter of fact, I would think it none of my business, but...
Well, what I'm saying is if we're going to adhere to this servant leadership principle, it just seems to me that, if to the extent there is a car available to save the county 45 cents a mile, or may go up, who knows, we ought to avail ourselves of that particular vehicle if we're going outside the county. And our policy ought to be, if we're going to events in the county, well, that's what we're expected to do. Just like we were expected to show up for work, and that's why we did away with the per diem payments, because you're expected to show up for work. Well, you're also expected, as part of your job as county commissioner, to go to events outside the county office building throughout the county. So I don't think we ought to be collecting any, seeking any mileage reimbursement for that sort of thing, because that's our job. That's the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, those are choices.
I don't think
you
it's
can
quite as
not go to
simple
those things.
as what it costs per mile, because there's an ownership cost. If there's a vehicle that sits here and is only used, about 20% of the week, so that there'd be a vehicle for people to use when they go to events, that's a lot of ownership costs and insurance and things that are, that is just not being utilized while we hold that vehicle for that. And since you're suggesting that, well, it wouldn't make sense for people who are living closer to where the outside event is to come all the way back to Westminster. It's really just applying to two commissioners, because as most of the events are to the east and south of us, the only people who would really be close enough to come to Westminster, pick up a car and go on, would be Commissioner Frazier and myself.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm 8 miles away.
I'm not sure that you driving on your way to a Baltimore Metropolitan Council meeting would be saving the county money to drive here and then drive there and then drive back.
But if I make the choice, Commissioner, to take my vehicle, as I always do, to the BMC, then I should also take it upon myself not to expect to be reimbursed for that. And I've never submitted a mileage claim for attending those BMC meetings. I mean, it just,
No, and I think
if I need a vehicle, I can come over here and get one.
Yeah, I think there's two issues. One is, I know the 2 times I went to Mako, the conference, I did actually take a pool vehicle, because that was the policy. The second thing is that, and for the same concerns Commissioner Frazier has, I couldn't even imagine trying to decipher between my business and kids, and so, using a vehicle all day long would be, or trying to even keep track of it would be silly. But I think that the bigger issue is 2 things. One is, I was under the impression when we did away with the cars, we were going to do away with the mileage too. To replace cars with mileage to me seems like kind of a trade one for the other. I thought those are the kinds of things we were getting rid of. And it didn't turn out that way, and I think the more I think about it, that was something we just said we were going to do away with. Because if mileage is going to cover the cost of ownership, wear and tear, then the county might as well have bought us cars. But the other thing is, I think
it's not equal. It's very different.
Well, it's supposed to cover the same thing.
It may be supposed to, but it certainly doesn't. Do the math. 45 cents a mile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, though, last week we were talking about having the same exact policies as the employees, regardless of whether the fleet study changes anything, which it may. Right now, the county employee for the policies is they use a fleet vehicle, or if they use their own vehicle, when a fleet vehicle is available, they get reimbursed 19 cents a mile. I can't think of any reason why we would have a different policy for us than the employees.
It goes back to the notion of servant leadership.
Well, it also goes back to the notion that we're doing things, we're succumbing to the same rules that the employees have.
I didn't know the set.
There is a
price
slight
for
difference
employees was different.
in that.
I'm glad you studied that out. Yeah.
Study all employees other than the 5 of us have a boss, to say, yes, it's appropriate for you to. This is an occasion in which it's appropriate for you to use your personal car. This is not an occasion where it's appropriate. to use. And the case of you going to, something in Howard County, it wouldn't pay us to have you drive to Westminster, get a pool card, go to Howard County, come back here, and then, compared to the mileage from your house to a BRAC meeting, for instance, in Howard County. And I'm not saying you take that mileage, but I'm just saying if you compared that. But if there was a supervisor, you would say, hey, what should I do here? And the supervisor could make that decision. For us, there's nobody to make that. So we have to have a set of principles, I guess, to guide ourselves that we agree on, rather than have someone you can go to and say, is this an instance where I should take a car, or would we be better off otherwise?
Well, but I think it comes down to the notion that whatever the policy is, it is. I mean, our directors are somewhat self-governing as well. I mean, they have someone they report to, but I don't think they're checking in to determine where they're going. I think it's just a matter of what's the policy. And I think the question is, we either are or not going to take mileage within the county. And if we go out of the county, we either are going to use a pool car or not use a pool car. And if we're not, what mileage reimbursement? To me, I could care less, because I've never submitted a mileage claim and don't have any intentions of doing so.
But you have done food.
I've done food?
Yeah.
So that's possible.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of a choice on those
But not
things,
food
I would
from,
think.
well,
I would think that,
well, I don't know.
Individually, we could make those decisions.
What food have I put in? I'm not sure.
I think you've had meetings with Western Maryland, where you've had meetings and paid for some food.
Oh, and Rich and I hosted that whole group of folks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So, but anyway, I don't really care. I think anything that professional people do, we should do too. I don't think that's a...
Anything professional people do or our employees do? Because last week we were talking about having the same rules as our employees.
Right, we did say that.
It doesn't sound like we're talking about the same thing.
I thought we were pretty clear about that last week.
I think whatever policies our staff has for anything should be our policies.
Okay. I'll take a look at that.
Okay? Do you want to have a discussion, or is there something else you want to do with that? Or?
Well, Mr. President, I think I'm prepared to make a motion. And the motion would be that with regard to us as commissioners, to the extent a pool car is reasonably available for out-of-county business, we should use that pool vehicle. And if we don't, if we decide that we're going to use our own vehicles, then we should be reimbursed at the same rate that the rest of county employees are reimbursed at. And furthermore, for events that occur within the confines of Carroll County, we ought to agree and make it a policy that we will not seek to be reimbursed for such activities. That's my motion.
All right. Have a second? No, I'll second it. Is there any discussion or questions on it?
Well, I take that as a direct affront to me.
It's not a direct affront to you. It's just a matter of adhering to the policy that the rest of our employees adhere to, just like we said we were going to do last week.
That sounds good. Mm-hmm. Okay.
No, if we disagree...
I'd like to read the whole policy then, because I didn't know I was doing anything outside of any policy. That has been the policy for commissioners. I know you all haven't been a commissioner before, but I have.
I'll tell you what,
And
Commissioner
that's
Frazier,
how it-
I love
and
hearing
that's how
that
it
we haven't been a
was.
commissioner before. You know what? I really don't think we need to be reminded that we haven't been a commissioner before, because frankly, I'm not sure things were so great 10 years ago, and I'm not sure you all got it right 10 years ago, so.
Well, that's possible.
Well, it is possible. It means
But-
nothing. There's nothing about what's been put in front of us this morning that has any bearing on what happened 10 years ago or you being a commissioner. That's very
Except
condescending to
that I'm
say.
following the policies that were.
Okay,
that
and
were
I also
then.
was to take a car and a per diem, and you know we're not doing that. When we met, we had that discussion.
No, it wasn't. We did.
You
We
didn't
did
have per
take a per
diems?
diem, but we
Okay.
didn't take a car. Commissioner Gooch took a car. Commissioner Dell and I did not take a car, but I did take mileage when I traveled,
I mean-
which isn't a reasonable thing
And
that business people do.
And I'm not sitting here casting judgment on any mileage claims that have been submitted to date. I'm just saying,
Why do you
going
think so?
forward, this is what we ought to do.
Well, it's because it's been raised by citizens. I mean, that's part of where it's, but I also think
I
last,
mean, chaos and Carroll?
no, I don't mean chaos and Carroll.
Sure.
No, I don't mean chaos
Okay.
and Carroll. But that's fine.
Well, you guys are amazing.
Well, you know. All right, we've got a motion. Any other questions or discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have a briefing from our, on the economic relief package number 2. Mr. Phil.